Wave Rover is now on the island of Lanzarote at the port of Calero in the Canaries. We're about 150 miles off of the coast of North Africa, off the coast of Morocco to be precise. And I've been back to Canada for 2 weeks, and now I'm back into Port of Calero, and I have about 9 days to get all the work done. So I consider this a work period, and during this time I'm going to change all the shrouds and the bridle to the backstay. That means climbing up and down the mast several times. So I'll be showing you my climbing gear, my climbing techniques. Also, that'll mean that Wave Rover will have a complete new set of stays, because if you remember, I changed the forestay and backstay before I left Canada. So that's a good, that gives you good peace of mind to know that your stays are all brand new, because I know the stays were probably 40 years old. They had never been changed. The second item we'll be doing is we'll be installing a pump in the galley. We'll also be changing some of the rigging points on the boom and the mast. I'll be installing cleats and turning blocks so that we can accommodate the third reef point that the sailmaker put in. The sailmaker also made a storm sail for me, and I'll be showing you that. When I was in Canada, my wife Glenda and I, we completed the jib, a brand new jib, and when I got that back here, I had to size it up and put grommets in it, both for a set of reef points and for the hanks, and install the hanks. I'll also be making some small improvements to the Mark III steering gear, and I'll be showing you that. And in addition, the students and technicians at the University of Prince Edward Island fabricated a stainless steel safety handle for just inside my hatch, which will make getting in and out of the hatch a whole lot easier. So I'll be installing that. That's going to take several days, because one of the things you have to remember when you're in a foreign port, things take much longer. There's issues with transportation. You know, when you're on a budget, you just don't go renting cars. You have to look into public transit. You have to coordinate your efforts perhaps with other folks who may be going to the same hardware or chandlery. And things just seem to take longer doing work in the same space that you live. You have to pull things apart. But you know, you still have to live there, you still have to cook, and you still have to sleep. So you get your tools out. It's like living in a tool shed for a few days in order to get the work done. Well, anyway, enough talking about this. I'll start showing you what I did. So here I am, I'm back on Wave Rover after spending a little over 2 weeks in Prince Edward Island, where I had a great time, but now it's time to get back on board. I spent 26 hours in transit from Prince Edward Island to here, and that was, let's see, from Charlottetown in Prince Edward Island to Montreal, Montreal to Brussels, Brussels to Lanzarote, where I am now. So when I got on board, I was generally happy. The boat, the surfaces were all clean, and then when I got inside, I had a very musty smell, and when I looked around, there's a fair bit of mold growing. So I'm going to show you what that looks like. On the wooden surfaces, you can see sort of a black and white. So we're going to get at this immediately with a little bit of water and bleach. And I carry bleach with me because I use a little bit to purify the water. And you can even see on the deck head here, on the cabin ceiling, you can see the blackness. It's generally on the wooden surfaces, but it is on some of the fiberglass surfaces as well. See, it's really obvious there. And even on some of the surfaces here, you can see sort of a light gray. I'll just wipe that with my finger, and you can see the color of my fingertips there. On a separate note, we have Wave Rabbit. Wave Rabbit pictured just to the right here. And when I got back in, I see that Wave Rabbit appears to have started a family. So I even said no partying when I was gone, but I'm not exactly sure what happened. Wave Rabbit, do you have anything to say for yourself? Because I know you have a lot of supporters back in Prince Edward Island. So a big part of the reason that you have mold, you need a couple of elements to have mold grow. And one is you need warmth and you need moisture. So the environment here just adds to that. And if you have air running through and a lot of ventilation, that'll go a great distance into stopping mold. But because the boat beside me was doing some fiberglass work, and there was a great deal of fibers in the air the day that I was leaving, and I knew they had a few more days of work to do, I had to leave all the hatches shut. And when I came back, it was really nice. I see they've washed down my entire boat, just a little bit of fibers in the scuppers, and yeah, which is fine, you know. I mean, people have to do work. So because the hatches were closed and the boat was generally watertight, that's what created the conditions to, really good conditions to grow mold. Now, the only other time I ever had an issue with this was on the passage from the Azores to here, where I was going to windward almost the entire time, and there were fairly strong winds, as you've probably seen in the video. So I couldn't have the hatches open, because whenever I had the hatches open, spray was coming into the boat. So those aren't normal conditions. You generally don't go on a passage when you're circumnavigating around the world. You don't go on a passage after passage after passage to windward. You're generally planning a downwind circumnavigation, or at least that's what I'm planning. So that was an extraordinary circumstance to have spent over 7 days going to windward. And under those conditions, I also had a bit of mold growing in the boat by the end of that passage, which, you know, nowhere near what I'm looking at right now. And I had wiped everything down and cleaned out the whole boat and washed everything before I left on my trip to Prince Edward Island. But now that I'm back, I'll be doing that again before I leave on my next passage, where I don't anticipate this issue, because I'll be going, as I said, downwind for the majority of that passage. Anyway, that's all I have for you right now. I have a heap of work that I have to get done over the next 7 or 8 days before I can leave on my very, very long passage to Panama from here in the Canaries. So I'll be checking in throughout my work schedule. Okay, so today I want to install this handle, which is going to help me get in and out of the boat and give me a really secure place to hang on to in, you know, whenever I need to. So the first thing I've done is I've actually already just put one hole to center it, and I'm happy with where it is. And I've put a little bit of masking tape on around the edge. So now I'm going to take a knife and trim that masking tape off. This morning I want to change up the bridle to the backstays. That's this piece right here. And I believe that this is the original backstay. And one of the things that concerns me about it is, as you can see down here, it comes up and then it looks like it takes an angle in. So we don't like to see any bends like that in our rigging. So the whole thing is old. It will be replaced. I was fortunate enough during my brief visit back to Prince Edward Island that a childhood friend of mine, Gordon Van Guns from Glenmore Boats, was able to arrange for a whole new set of stays, or the stays that I haven't replaced so far, and had them expedited, and they were, you know, they were shipped to me in time for me to bring out with me. So now to change the backstay, the first thing you need to do is you need to loosen it off, so you don't want the mast falling down. So this is a halyard, and this is the halyard. It's secured to that cleat. It goes up to the masthead, and then it's secured to it's secured to this cleat right here on the mast. Good morning. We're heading up the mast again. It's early in the day, and the wind that we had yesterday, which was blowing almost 25 knots, has died down. It's probably only 5 to 7 knots right now. So this is a pretty good condition to go up the mast. So I've undone the upper shroud. My next job will be to get up to the spreaders and undo that cap, and then go to the top of the mast and replace the old shroud with the new shroud. And I don't know if you can see that, but there's a definite bend in this. So this is, again, probably one of the original stays. So it's time to replace it before the next ocean crossing. So here it goes. Now I've tied the shroud off to a bit of rope, and I have it long enough so that it's hanging well below my feet. We don't want that getting in the way when we're climbing. Locked on, and now we put our feet in. Okay. That is secure. There we go. It's a machine screw. It's not very long, so I don't want to back it out too far or it's going to go flying over the side. It also has a lock washer on that we want to save. And there we go. Into the bag. Remove the cap. There's Wave Rover. Okay, let's get back to the job at hand. So what I'll do is just that easy to remove the stay. Now we want to secure it so it doesn't go crashing down. We put a hole in the deck. Okay. Time to get the new stay. Go, and we will deal with that on the way down. Okay, so everything's in good shape. Time to head down. time to put the cap in here. So it can only go one way, as there's a hole on this side and none on this side, and that lines up with where our machine screw will be going through. Okay, have our machine screw and our lock washer. Again, don't drop this. Screwdriver. Okay, that's tight. Well, good morning, everybody. I'm about 3 days out from my epic passage across the Atlantic yet again to Panama from the Canaries here. And this morning I've been up the mast one more time. This time it was to put up a flag halyard on the starboard spreader, and on the port spreader you can see the radar reflector has been reinstalled. It had blown off in the first Atlantic crossing during that gale, and luckily it landed on deck with a bang, and I was able to run up on deck and grab it before it went over. So I have it well secured, both with electrical, those plastic zip ties, and it's also lashed with lobster twine. Okay, we have painting that's drying right now, and now we're going back inside the boat. So we're back inside the boat, and it's a real mess in here because I'm changing up the battery. So everything has been turned upside down to get access to tools and access to the battery box. So this is the box, and it's actually bolted through these points right here, and that holds the battery in place, and it's located then right under this portion, so it can't come up, it can't go out, it can't go fore and aft. This is the new battery right here. It's a sealed lead acid, and this is the old battery, and it's hardly old at all. It was purchased just a week before I set sail on the first Atlantic crossing, and it appears to have a broken cell. All the indications are that it has a failure, and it's had that all along. And the first real sign of that was my inverter wouldn't work. The battery, I had an inverter set up to it, and that was used to charge any of my 110 volt appliances. But the inverter it's a smart inverter, and it has a diagnostic check, and it came up with a red light saying there was something wrong with the voltage. We're on to the next job here. So I'm going to install cleats on the steering gear. So they'll go on like that, one on each side. And the reason for that is the control lines, these lines right here, when they get wet, they stretch a bit. And when they stretch, they're not giving the same signal to the trim tab that I need to steer the boat correctly. So I'll get these on, and that will be that. So I've installed the cleats now, and I've also changed the control line, and I've run it through slightly different so that it has better traction on the pulley, and it's very adjustable at this point, so I'll be able to experiment more. And the reason I changed the control line is because this control line at the Chandler, they told me it won't stretch. The other control line did stretch a little bit. Well, we'll just have to see. Well, the sun is getting a little low on the horizon, but I'm just completing my outdoor work for today. This is a cheek block. It was the best I could find. It's not exactly what I wanted, but it'll work. It's for the third reef point, and it's a turning block, and it'll bring the reefing rope back along the boom to this cleat that I installed. And I also installed, while I was at it, an extra cleat on the mast that I'll probably use to assist in the reefing cringles as well. I'll work that out as I'll work that out when I get underway. Now we're back inside. The battery has been put back in. All the material has been put back on top of the bunk, so I have a bit of room over on this side. And right now I'm installing a pump so that Wave Rover will have water coming out to the sink. But as you can see, this hole is far too large, so I've made these little pieces of plywood, and I've given them 3 coats of that enamel paint that I've been using on the other projects, which I'll show you right away. And I'll get that pump done this evening. And let's just pop outside and I'll show you the painting I did today. So this is the support I use for the engine when it's mounted up in the V-berth, and it's designed to hold the engine, and the engine is then lashed down by 2 U-bolts to prevent it from sliding around or launching itself. In addition, the 3 new wind vanes, the medium-sized ones, have been painted, 2 coats each side, so I'm just letting the paint harden a bit. And that completes, well, when I get the pump in, that will complete the work for today. A really long day. This really is a working period for Wave Rover, not a holiday. And now, at the very end of the evening, I have water. Very nice. All right, now it's time for a big tidy up.